Met my first client when I was at Starbucks, and this man was just sitting opposite me, and he was just like, "What are you doing?" And I was just like, "I'm registering to be a freelancer." Like, I was explaining everything. He's like, "Oh, but I need social media for my business." I think my first contract was like 1,000 rand. It's like, it is what it is. But I was very proud of myself. I'm like, "Yo, it's your first 1,000 rand that like you made." So fast forward, I mean, next year Feb will be 7 years of nuclear. This went by so quickly, and so much has happened during this time. I got to open up, I think, 2-3 hotels, restaurants. Like, I really got to push what I was passionate about. And I think that was also the other thing. Like, you also start with what you had. I had a borrowed laptop from a friend that was like this thick. It was something that you could probably break a neck with. Don't worry about having the latest iPhone that, you know, you need to be a content creator, or, you know, that you have to have the best laptop to do your editing. Lord knows I built a website and there was a lag every 15 minutes, and I just had to practice patience while I built websites. But I never knew I was going to win awards and things like that. I really just did the work, and I made sure that they had some impact behind it. I always believe that there should be some form of impact attached to profit. It can't just be you making money and then what? You just swimming in your pool like Scrooge McDuck. No. Hi, I'm Cleo Anastatia Johnson. I'm 32 years old and I'm a hospitality marketing consultant.
Please tell us the story of how you got into hospitality marketing management.
So I studied hospitality management at the Cape Town Hotel School. And that was back in, back in 2010. Did that, and I studied for 3 years. And part of part of my studies was that we had to do like internships and that. And the first internship I had done in Cape Town at Crystal Towers, and then the second one I was supposed to go to Dubai, but the hotel I was going to close down, so I was like, okay. Moved to Joburg. My mom was here, so also just to give context, I've been between Joburg and Cape Town my whole life. Mom's here, dad's in Cape Town. So came back to Joburg because I did my primary school here, so came back for like my career essentially. And then around about, I want to say 2012, like mid-2012, had moved up to Joburg, and I started working at the African Pride Melrose Arch Hotel. What's interesting about doing hospitality management is that you do all the departments. So I've been a housekeeper, I've been in maintenance, fixing toilets, like literally, and then all the people, I guess, who constitute the glamorous jobs where you're wining and dining clients, and so I've been through all of it. And around about, 2012, 2013, I then got appointed as reception at front office. But the thing was, like, my previous GM from Crystal Towers was visiting in Joburg, and he's like, "Are you sure you don't want to come back down to Cape Town?" And I was like, as tempting as it was, the salaries in Cape Town versus Johannesburg are literally worlds apart. So I was just like, I'm going to chase money a little bit, but thank you for the opportunity. I was in front office for like a whole month. And understand with hospitality, you have to be high heels. It's like this constant, like you look polished. My feet were dying. And I was just like, I don't think I can do this for like a year or two, as much as the money's there. And there was a position that opened up for a marketing assistant. And I was like, okay, let me try it. I didn't know a thing about marketing, so I was just like, but let me try. Applied for the position, got the job, and that was Feb of 2013. And one thing about me, and I will not hold back, I do work extremely hard. I'm also that one person where I'm like, I don't like failing in something or fumbling, so I'm gonna like throw myself all in the beginning, just so that I can grasp the concept and just do well, because, oh, guys, mediocrity, it hurts so much. So, was in that position for 4 months, and the group revenue manager at the time was in our hotel, and he had put me forward for a marketing manager position at Protea Hotel Midrand. So I got promoted, did the interview, got promoted, and it was insane. Like 4 months, like going from an assistant to a manager. Nobody also tells you how stressful it is. So I think also there's a misconception when people speak about hospitality management, and it's actually hospitality marketing specifically, sorry. And they don't actually realize what of a commercial role it is. It's not just social media and putting a poster together. When I was working with Marriott and Protea at the time, like the hotel's revenue and how well it does in a month is very much dependent on me. Not the GM, not the stuff, me, and the actions that I've put together and delegated. So at one point I had a bald patch here from all the stress at 21. It was crazy. And I remember that, but I just know that it was like heavy nights. Like I would leave at 11, come back at 6, and you are literally just pushing. But I was so grateful that like in 6 months, myself and my revenue manager could honestly say that we had flipped that property around just with like our actions and us just not wanting to fail. And that then propelled me on to Radisson. They picked me up. And again, also, we love Joburg's money because literally what I was earning there, they doubled. And what was crazy was all I wanted at the time was to have my pay increase by like $2,000 extra. And they were like, no, they can't give me this increase because I don't have a marketing degree. And I'm like, but I flipped your property around in 6 months with no experience. But cool. And I was just like, went to job market, Radisson picked me up, and absolutely loved working for that group. I think how they approached marketing as well was so fresh and different from the previous hotel group. And there as was where I saw, I want to say, like my career skyrocketed. However, it did come with challenges, like in both instances, I had really horrible bosses, like very toxic. Like I would be in and out of hospital because also boundaries. I think also when you're in your 20s, you don't really understand boundaries when going into corporate. You just want to please people and you want to do good, but there's no balance, like whatsoever. And obviously I have a people-pleasing tendency, and I also want to be acknowledged and praised. And it's all of these things that you have to deal with when you grow up. So had that. And my boss at the time at one of the Radissons I was working at was just, ghetto. Oh my God, it was the pits. But at least with that, what I appreciated is that head office also saw my efforts. So they had just moved me to a different property. I also then became like the acting director of sales and marketing at 23. Like I was doing like really, really well. And I really appreciated I want to just saying being seen and also just being pushed in that sense. Because I kept saying I didn't want to be director of sales and marketing. And they're like, you'll be fine. We believe in you. And I was just like, okay. And that trickled and went on up until the point of, I think it was 2016. And then I had the opportunity to move to Cape Town and open up one of their properties in Cape Town. And things were going fine. And also because it's property to property, you don't really have to worry too much about like the contracts and the legalities around these things because it is, within the group. Should have seen that as a sign. So December comes and I'm just like, okay, obviously I need to plan, like I'm moving things back down to Cape Town, but I was also so sad about it. Like it was the craziest thing. Like I've been wanting to go back to Cape Town for the longest time. And I think that was such a push and pull for me going back home and being here. And I remember like crying in my car every day, like once I left work, like, can I really move to Cape Town? Oh my God, I'm leaving my mom behind and my brothers behind. It was such an emotional thing. And come Jan, like beginning of Jan, and I was also very new in my Christian journey, and I remember my pastor's like, we're gonna do this fast. And I was like, what is a fast? But okay. And you have to like write down like the things you want to fast for. Guys, when I say I really didn't know how to fast, shame. But in any case, I had like a wish list. And one of the things was, I know it sounds, again, this is how you know I didn't know how to fast. I was fasting that I could eventually get to the point that I would research how to open up my own business at some point. And like, please ask me why that's a prayer point. But in any case, I think also it was just like, you don't quite know what to expect of God and you don't quite know him. So we on the surface level, we're here. And I remember things just going very pear-shaped with my contract in Cape Town. I got my contract like a week or two before I was supposed to leave. My stuff was ready, like I booked the truck, everything was ready. And then the GM came back and he was like, okay, we're gonna have to change things. We can't pay to house you for the month. We can't do this. And I'm like, but then why am I moving down to Cape Town? Like, where do you want me to live? Hello. And then I was just like, bold move. And I was like, and bear in mind, my position had been filled already at the hotel I was at. So it's not like I had anything to fall back on, which is weird. I was always that planner person. I always had like a backup for everything. And then I decided, you know what, little bold move. I was just like, thanks, but I'm not going to do this. And he was just like, all the best. There was no like, what do they call it? Call it when you like chicken fight with people. Oh like man. Like back and forth, man. Like when you, when you bluff, when somebody takes your bluff. Because I was also like, yeah, ballsy, but also just like, maybe, maybe, nux. So I was just like, okay. And I still remember going to home cell that night and I was like, I don't know what the plan is, but I was also not stressed for the first time in a very long time. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to India, because also when you're in hospitality, you have no time to take off. It's literally a 24/7 business. So I was like, okay, let me go and like travel and just, I don't know, see what the world at least. And I still had like my, one of those massive backpacks that you would do for like backpacking and whatever. I had all of that ready. I had like, withdrew my pension, and I was just like, I'm going to pay off debts and whatever, and then just go and live carefree. And then other things happened. Like God was just like sense of humor time. And yeah, met my first client when I was at Starbucks. So I was just registering to be a freelancer because I'm like, got to find ways to make money while I'm on the road. And this man was just sitting opposite me and he was just like, what are you doing? And I was just like, I'm registering to be a freelancer. Like I was explaining everything. He's like, oh, but I need social media for my business. He had a tent manufacturing company. know nothing about tents, but sure. I was like, cool. And because also I didn't know how to price anything back then, I think my first contract was like 1,000 Rand. It's like, it is what it is. But I was very proud of myself. I'm like, yo, it's your first 1,000 Rand that like you made, not like that a company paid you or anything like that. And yeah, so that's where my journey began. Entrepreneurship was hella hard. Like, we're talking about where you have 100 Rand left, but you must still go to a meeting, but your car barely has petrol, and you don't have Wi-Fi at home, so you must go sit at cafe. It was just... but we push, and I think that was also the other thing. Like, you also start with what you had. I had a borrowed laptop from a friend that was like this thick. It was something that you could probably break a neck with. I had an old phone, like, but I was just like, you needed to start. Like, you needed to start somewhere, and I think that's also such an important thing that I always like tell people. Don't worry about having the latest iPhone that, you know, you need to be a content creator, or, you know, that you have to have the best laptop to do your editing. Lord knows I built a website and there was a lag every 15 minutes, and I just had to practice patience while I built websites. And also, what you put out is not going to always be your best. If I look at the social media I did back then, I will cringe. Oh, it was horrible. Obviously, again, you would need to allow yourself to get better. But yeah, so fast forward, I mean, next year, Feb will be 7 years of nuclear. And it literally just feels like the other day. I think we always think, like, it's going to be forever. Like, 10 years is a long time. This went by so quickly, and so much has happened during this time. I got to open up, I think, 2-3 hotels, restaurants. Like, I really got to push what I was passionate about, and also got dribbled a lot in my own pursuit of my career and building a business. Like, just realizing, you know, people you can trust, also chasing the wrong things that aren't aligned with you. But one thing I can say is that in the beginning, it was, and I always say this, I never knew I was going to win awards and things like that. I really just did the work, and I made sure that they had some impact behind it. I always believe that there should be some form of impact attached to profit. It can't just be you making money and then what? You just swimming in your pool like Scrooge McDuck. No, it's boring, trust me. So for me, I really, really enjoyed that. And then COVID happened, and it was the worst thing. I've only now recovered from COVID, and it was 3 years of pure hell and crushing, lost everything. So when people want to speak about homelessness and not having trust and the suicide, like the suicidal thoughts, the mental health, we could sit and chat about that, but it was heavy. But I'm very grateful for community. I think that's one thing that we don't always speak about in entrepreneurship, because we always think we must be in our own lane. And it's a very isolating thing. I don't think a lot of people speak about that. With entrepreneurship, I think the stats were sitting at that 68% of entrepreneurs struggle with mental health issues. We speak about how to start, but what I've started even doing with my content is being very raw on Instagram and just this is the ish that you go through. I'm not going to tell you that, you know what, you must have that million and then you're going to buy a Ferrari. No, guys, please have real chats. Be realistic with people. And especially in South Africa, I think we've obviously seen the social media ploy of it's the Louis Vuitton handbag, it's the sipping champagne, and. Those are once in a while, it's nice, but it's not the everyday hustle. There are some days where I can be on camera and smiling, and then I literally get back into bed because my depression is just so bad that I'm just bawling my eyes out and don't want to get up. But I have to show up because I need to show up, right? And I think, again, as well, we don't show that side on social media. We don't show the sadness always, or how heavy things are, or that clients are paying you late, so now there's just this world on top of you. We don't speak about losing staff because of COVID and how heartbreaking that is. And there's so much turmoil that comes with it, but I think when you are an entrepreneur and you know you're in it for the right reasons, and I don't want to say you've been called for it, but you know in your heart of hearts that this is what you're meant to do, it's something you genuinely fight for. No amount of wanting to go back for corporate is going to suffice, because you've tasted what it is to just, I want to say, live in your gifting and seeing how you can impact people's lives and how you can stretch yourself. I always say entrepreneurship was probably the best thing I could have gone into. It was never anything I planned. I know some people were from the age of 4, they were busy selling sweets on the street. I avoided entrepreneurship like the plague. I even hated market days. I made sure I was absent. I hated selling things. And it's so ironic that I eventually went into that space.
Okay, so you touched a bit on something that a lot of 20-something-year-olds struggle with a lot. Mm-hmm. Communities. How did you overcome any feelings of fear around building a community, because it comes with vulnerability? And also, how did you find genuine community? Because that's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially in their 20s. Because sometimes you're friends with people out of convenience versus this is where I can go.
And also just not knowing what a friend is.
Yes, we can actually what is a friend? How do you make friends?
Listen.
And how do you learn to be vulnerable.
And also how to be a friend as well. I think that's the other thing. So I must say I'm very fortunate that I still have my best friend from high school. Given she does live in the Netherlands now, but I think our relationship is one of sisterhood. And it's funny enough, we actually spoke about it the other day. I'm like, we sometimes don't even chat for like 3 months, but like life is busy. And also she's married. So I'm like, there's a different, like, you know, how she operates is very different to me. And obviously where she is in her journey. So, but when we catch up, it's like no time has passed. We're just like, it's the weirdest thing. So very, very fortunate in that sense. And I think why I'm also fortunate is because I've had somebody that's seen me as Cleo, who was unruly in high school, to like Cleo now. It's like worlds apart. But I look at like my 20s, right? And if I think back to, I think it was also, we're very quick to say, and I'm sure we've all heard this on social media, we are very quick to say somebody's a friend. Like, very, very quick. We're like, oh, my friend. But you guys have only maybe just met at church or you met at some party and now we're friends. No. I think you are allowed to have people in your life that you just party with. Like, I think for me, what I've learned now, and especially this year as well, because I had to do like a little stock take of some of the friends in my life. And I was just like, it's not so much that I want to cut you out completely because you're not like a horrible person, but I also just need to assign you properly to your category, and also like where I situate you in my life. Like, are you the person I call up if we want to do brunch and a catch up and maybe a little bit of a therapy session? Cool. Are you the person that I invite to like an Afro house tech event because I just want to party with somebody and just let my hair loose? You know, I feel like they are friends for different occasions. And then obviously there's the deep ones that are there just, if you want to break down on a Thursday, you can pick up the phone. So I had to do that little stock take. But even like I was chatting to my friend and I mentioned that I don't want to be friends with a certain person anymore. And I'm like, it was really a case of, it's been a friendship since high school, but was it really a friendship? Like if I really look back like and be honest with myself, I'm like, and I always have to find myself that I was always hyping myself up to be around this person because it was very draining being around them. But you somewhat felt obligated to be a friend because you've been around each other since, you know, the crack of dawn. So it's just things like that. We like, why are we honoring things just because they've been, and I think we always honor time and like lifespan. So because they've been around for like 15 years, surely, you know, no. There are people that and one thing I'm very appreciative of, like, I don't have like horrible experiences, and I think it's also the energy you put out on social media. Like, so I've met the most amazing people on Instagram who have become friends and have opened up their homes to me and have just been this amazing tribe. And other people have like really sketchy experiences, and I'm so sorry for that. But yeah, so I think if I look back to my 20s and we speak about vulnerability, and also just having those people around you. I remember there was also somebody I considered a friend. And I remember when she had asked me a thing, I'm like, oh yeah, what do you think your talents are? And I was like, yeah, no, I don't have the whole thing of, oh, I can play an instrument, but I'm like, I'm really good. Like, I'm a very like creative person. And then that was like early 20s, and she's like, are you really? Needless to say, homegirl like isn't in my life anymore. But also I realized that there are people that just don't wish you well. But funny enough, would crawl back this year because she wants to work with me. And I'm like, hello, after 5 years, how are you doing? You know, again, as well, it's, again, people who just want to be around you because you have something to offer them and not the other way around. But if I look at when I decided to open up, I really think it was when COVID happened, and I think I also forced myself to be vulnerable because I didn't want to be, or I didn't have the energy to say I'm okay, because I really wasn't. Like, and what I appreciated is the people that I was vulnerable with, they were just like, please do this more. And not just like me, but like, I think people need to be more vulnerable, and, you know, people want to experience that. I think there's so much fakeness or falseness, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to specifically speak about Joburg and Cape Town because those are my cities. And then when it comes to entrepreneurship as well, where people, again, as well, you know, it's the optics, it's the facade that you need to keep up, and I really don't care for it. Like, yeah, I experienced my winning and my losing season all at once. And I didn't think it was possible, because, you know, we speak about a winning season, we speak about a losing season, and it was just like, oops. And I was like, okay, this is a bit of a mind fudge for me. But all I had was to be vulnerable and say, you know what? And literally, I would be calling these people crying, weeping. And it was so nice to be able to do that. It's weird as hell now that I think about it. I'm like, you just call people crying. Or they would send me selfies of them crying and be like, oh my God, it's a tough day. And I'm like, but it's fine, because at least, you know, you've got somebody to open up to, because rather that than you committing suicide and then, you know, we find out all of these things. And I think that's just kind of where we are in the world as well. And yes, it sucks sometimes to open up to people and they don't not necessarily reciprocate, but they can't hold that space or they judge you because they're not ready to be vulnerable. And that's a them thing. It has nothing to do with you. But I'm so glad I was vulnerable because I gained the most amazing community and people that I could call on, whether they stick with me for the next 5 years or not is much of a muchness. And I think we also need to get to that place that people can come and go and be okay with releasing people. I don't think be so hard on the fact that somebody left me and oh my God, these abandonment issues. No, like some people are also just there for a season and what they did in that season, whether it was good or bad, or they just gave you like a bit of, like I want to say knowledge or wisdom and that you garnered from that situation, it's fine. I think one thing I appreciated, and I spoke about this yesterday, we had like Friendsmas, and the one friend, she's like, what, 28? And like the two of us are in our 30s, my other friend. And it was just like, what I appreciated about 30, or turning 30 was that, we always, I think in our 20s, we are scared, we are told to like fear it. And it's like, everything's just gonna go downhill from there. And it's just this, guys, I've never felt more fabulous, more stunning. I've appreciated my body and just like, I am like goddess mode. Like I literally do not, 20s were messy. I was just like, we're out here having eating disorders and we're drinking and we don't stay at home. Like it's mess. But I really enjoy that there's this certainty that came with my 30s where I'm just like, you just learn to like release things. It's not that it's not that serious. It doesn't have to be that serious. You don't have to have a reaction to everything. And I think that's also another thing when it comes to community. If you have the time, and I would say take the time, what do you actually want from community? What do you want from the people around you? Do you want people to understand you? Because that's a big thing for me. Even when I speak about having a partner, I want somebody to understand me before anything else. Because I think that's where things start falling apart, when people don't understand you. People don't understand that you're quirky and that you're sarcastic and that you've got this side that can kind of switch up. And also when you're tired, you're a completely miserable human being. I need somebody to understand that. And then also knowing that like you can be both a hard bitch type thing and also be a complete wacko behind the scenes and just want to fall apart and be a princess, and you can be more than one thing. And that's also something I learned in my season. And then God had to teach me that we assign our value to like one title or like one function, where he's like, who gave you that?
Okay. You mentioned that there's a friend of yours that knows you from when you were unruly in high school, right? I want to tap into that. I want to hear about that, okay?
Okay.
Cleo in high school, what was she up to? What were the vibes, right? Like when she imagined herself in the future, what was she up to? Like,
Whew, okay, so believe it or not, the person you see in front of you is very much put together with me in high school. So obviously I can think back to those days and I'm like, wow, like Cleo was broken, shame. So I look at like grade 8, I had my first eating disorder, then stopped eating altogether. Like I was literally just, you could see in my school, that school picture, you could literally see like the bags, like my sunken in eyes because I'm just like not eating. But also because we are, a high performer, we are still swimming, we're still playing soccer, we are still running on the athletics team. And it was in that year as well of grade 8 where I then got onto TUC. Actually, it was on my birthday. So, and I think I also started drinking that year. Oh, guys, messy. Like, so when I say I've been drinking for a while. And it then became a thing of experimenting with drugs and drinking, and it was a partying part, but then also still wanting to perform in like sports and stuff. Academics, I was like, much of a muchness. I think after grade 9, I was just like, this is just too much. Also, because I don't really speak about like that jump from primary school to high school, and that you're actually not going to be excellent by the time you get to grade 8 again, like you start all over. It was a bit of a mind fudge for me. But yeah. And then also I did a lot of risky things. Like, I really did not value my life. Like, if I think about like sneaking out of the house, hanging out at a taxi rank. Like, what is a teenage girl hanging out at a taxi rank for? Please explain this to me. With grown-ass men, and also grown-ass men, why are you hanging out with teenagers? Like, that's a whole other thing to unpack. But in any case, also like, I think because that was also such a tumultuous time in my family as well, it was just this escape for me. I was just like, you know what, I'm going to be chaotic. And also I think there was just this culture of like every Monday you had to have like the story of like what wild-ish did you catch on this weekend. Oh, drinking and smoking were like the standard staple thing that you did on the weekend, so you can't even say you did that. Like, was it, oh, we ran away from home this weekend. Oh, we were partying here. Oh, we got into this part. Guys, why? Like, I think back, I'm like, wow. Low-key fear of why I'm like a bit hesitant about having kids, because I'm like, there's going to be a me in there somewhere. That's scary. So that was chaotic, Cleo. I think there was a bit of a flip when my grandmother passed. I think that was might have been grade 10. Towards the end of grade 10, my grandma passed. She had cancer. And I think I was like, okay, interesting. It was a very interesting thing for me. And I think because it was like my first big loss. We knew about funerals and death and things like that, but when it was so close to home, I think it's like a different story. And then I remember, I think there was a turning point for me. So, this is always the weird thing, you act out and whatever, but there's a small part of you that knows you have like dreams. Small part. And I knew I wanted to travel. That was a big thing for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to travel. And I think there was a moment for me. We were leaving what they call like a tukais, and it was with two guys. I can't even call them my friends because I don't even know their names anymore. Two sketchy guys, but they lived in our area. And I remember I was walking with them, and we had just finished, and like my granny's house was on the corner, so this house must have been like 2 houses down over here. And there was like a school over here, and then like another house, so that's like the intersection. And the cop car came, and I remember this guy like crushing the light bulb quickly on the sidewalk so that if we get and in that moment I'm like, is this my life? Like, me that wants to travel, like I could get locked up now and not be able to travel or leave the country. And I was just like, there's no way. There's no way. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, I'm grateful I didn't have to go through the thing of like going to rehab and things like that, but it was just this thing of like, okay, we're done here. The process of getting out of that and getting back on track, I want to say, with life was a bit odd. Obviously, like, was still swimming. I think I made like swimming captain in grade 10 already, like. So like I was saying, like there was the functioning part of Cleo. We were functioning, but messy and broken. And I remember then also like I started throwing myself back into studies, and I saw like the change in my teachers as well. They were like, "This you?" I'm like, "Yeah, no shame. Like I can study if I wanted to." And that was also like kind of took over me a little bit. So I want to say like there was those few key moments, like grandma passing, this whole cop thing. I was just like, no, thank you. And then just like getting back into studies, getting back into my swimming and like taking it seriously, coupled with a lot of things that was, like I said, going on in my family, like with my dad, with my mom, like my safety as well. There was just so many things where I was just like, and I realized why, even in my 20s, I was just never home because home was never safe for me. So as much as I'm paying rent, like I literally moved out at the age of 21, as much as I'm paying rent all these years, I was never home. I loved sleeping out. I would be partying, whatever. If I'm home, I'm there to change, shower, have a meal, gone. And I stayed in the most beautiful, I've stayed in Hyde Park. Do you think I ever really enjoyed that house? Yeah. No. So it's just things like that where, high school was wild. It was very wild. But I'm very grateful that I obviously didn't die. And yeah, I guess my grandmother's prayers or my mom's, somebody was covering me, like, because, yeah.
Okay, you've lived a life, right? And anybody who maybe would have met you at that time would have been like, it's over.
Yeah,
it's
no.
too far gone, right? And a lot of people have that mentality to be like, oh, because this is where I come from, or because this is the life I've lived, I can't get to, 17-time award-winning businesswoman. You know what I'm saying? I can't get there.
Yeah.
So what I want to ask is, how did you get back up from, I don't want to say the fall, but how did you get back up from that point of, the point of no return, as people would say?
Yeah.
For me, if I'm hearing that story, I'm saying, it's late.
I think, like, it's such a weird thing, though, because, like, I was still pushing, like, excellence on the one side. So I was still going to school, and yes, okay, there were, like, in high school, there was the occasional, like, I bunked and had Saturday detention, but, like, even varsity, I was in my element, like, you know when you also, like, study something that you're like, oh my gosh. So Cleo was on the dean's list, but Cleo was still chaotic. I always say I was, what did I always call myself? I was a responsible rebel. That was me. Weirdest thing, like I was always very calculated, like, yeah, we're gonna be out till 4 o'clock, but I know I need to get just like 2 hours sleep so I can like be ready for class. Like that was me. I don't know why. So I know, like, you are a problem when like the family talks about you. Like, oh, Cleo's on drugs, like, you're that girl. But I'm also that person, like weirdly enough, like I love proving people wrong, so might have helped as well. And I don't know, like, I don't know if there was a turning point, because if I think about it, it was just like, my 20s really was just like a journey, and even just up until this year, where I was just like stopped drinking, stopped smoking weed. I basically stopped my bullshit, in essence. And also just like having to, you know what the crazy thing is? Because I've been living on my own for what is the maths? Like 12, maybe 9, no. What is the maths? 21, 31, yeah. So, 12 years I've been staying on my own. And you would think that, you know, being on your own, you know how to be on your own. It's a big difference. And I thought I knew that up until this year where I was like, oh, but even when I'm on my own, I'm either high or I'm drinking or whatever. So I've never really sat with myself sober. So even just in that, like, I don't think we teach that in our 20s, like actually how to be on your own. Like, I know how to be on my own, but none of that. So I don't know if there was really like this turning point of like no return. I think I just kept pushing and things just kept unfolding and I had to heal a bit here and kind of workshop this, and it was one of those things. But yeah, like, I mean, also we had messy relationships because when you're broken and you're doing chaotic things that are not aligned with you, you get into some messy relationships that are not great. So yeah, there's that. So I don't think there was a point where it was like, we're gonna stop altogether. I think there was just I'm gonna kind of say like you get to a new level and it's like, okay, this is required of me, and I think also like you can carry your nonsense with you while you're still trying to push for excellence and reach your goals and whatever, but at some point it becomes heavy, like really, really heavy. So that's why I always say like, healing's also a journey, and I think we've all known this. Like, healing is a journey, and even when you think you've healed from something else is going to come back and just trigger it, and you're going to check like, oh no, this is not actually healed, and we have to go back again. I think that's literally just been an ongoing working on yourself. I'm very grateful though that I am a person that is self-aware, because I've also met people who are not and I'm like, how do you live? What are the conversations you're having with yourself? Because mine are like very different to yours. And I think you can also see it in that person's life where they are just stagnant and literally blaming the world and they're a victim. And I'm like, because me, I can sit and be like, I was on drugs and that's why I couldn't do anything. No, honey. Like, at some point you need to want more for your life, regardless of what has you in bondage and regardless of circumstances. And if you grew up in a crappy neighborhood and you didn't have money and all of these, there are so many of us in South Africa that can literally say that. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do differently?
I want us to go back to you, younger years. What type of life are you living, right?
Okay.
How do you see yourself? Like when you look in the mirror, you know, you also mentioned you got an ED in grade 8. Like, how did you see yourself? And what about your circumstances and where you were in that time impacted you in grade 8, maybe having an eating disorder? And how did you get out of that?
Oh, that eating disorder went on up until varsity, because then it got worse. Because then I was taking laxatives at that point. Like, it just went. But if I look at childhood, he was in primary school. So I know, like, I always say, like, one thing about my dad, he really pushed us to work and work hard, and that you're going to be number one. You push for first place. Like, that's what you do. So, I mean, the fact that I was swimming at the age of 4, I'd learned how to read already. This is now before nursery school. But like, I know, when was it? Grade 1 already. So what was that, 7? I was doing galas already. I mean, if we weren't on the side pitch watching my dad play soccer, because he was a professional soccer player at one point, like, I think I was also just surrounded by people, and if I look at my grandfather, whatever, people that were just constantly like pushing and raising the bar. So I think that also played into, like, obviously our family is also very competitive, Kane's not included. And we even, like, some of the cousins always laugh because, like, now the parents are like, you guys are so competitive. And I'm like, who made us like this? Like, literally, it's not us. So it's just small things like that. Like, I can't just bowl and have fun. Like, I need to win. Like, there's a stretch. I can sit here and laugh at you and be like, oh, it's fun and games. In my mind, I am like the scoreboard. It's there. I think I've learned to fail, because that was one thing, and I think that's the downside. When you are teaching your kids to win and you don't teach them how to fail. When I failed, I took it hard. Girl was in a fetal position for 3 days. Like, I couldn't compute. So that was like childhood. If I look back, and like obviously now, like as you're older, you can obviously like either not glamorize certain moments, or you can pick up and you're like, oh, that's what was happening. So I know. And you know, this was the craziest thing. There was a time, and this is how, like, you really are a kid, right? And I still remember the one day, and I had this very cute, like, red leather set on, looked very much like Britney Spears, thanks, Mom. You know, bell bottoms, crop top, we looked hella cute. And I remember still, like, washing my hands, and I'm like, sure, our family's so happy. 2 days later, Mom dropped the bomb, Dad and I are getting a divorce. And I remember, like, I don't know, it's like a weird thing. Like, you understood, but you didn't quite understand. I just remember my world being rocked, and I went to bed, and I literally just had the cover over me, and I was just like, sad. Because I don't think you also understand what it means. But also just seeing my parents divorce, it was messy. There was nothing, even now, like, I can't deal with conflict really well because of how conflict was dealt with there. I'm getting slightly better at it now, but I mean, what, I'm 32, like, I should not be only learning how to be in conflict management now. Like, it's a bit late. But in any case, we live and we learn. So there was that. And then obviously my parents separating. And again, like I said, having to be like the middle person that like my parents spoke through, or, you know, having to like be the older sister, but be the mom as well, because I've had a younger brother as well. So, I mean, from 10 already, I was making sure that like my brother and I, like we get home from school, lunch, homework, whatever, and then my dad gets home in the evening. So there was just certain things where I also felt like I was asked or kind of forced to be a grown-up way before my time. And just like worry about things that I should not be. Like, why am I worried about grocery shopping? Please, like, I know I'm a girl, but like, surely this should not be my problem. So I think that, you know, like you now look back at your parents, and this was only something that happened later in my 20s where I could finally see my parents as like human, because obviously we see them on this pedestal, you know, and we have very little grace for them or forgiveness, because you're like, oh, like, why did my dad act like that? And I'm like, he was probably also doing the best that he could and navigating something that's also rocked his world, and there was just like a multitude of things. So there was that. And I think, like, I think it was in grade 9 when I was eventually sent for therapy. And my therapist was like, it's the divorce that had you acting out this eating disorder, the drugs, and all of that. And I was just like, and sorry, for me, I hate being a statistic. And I was like, ew, like, that affected me. Because I was just like, I'd never thought, like, the divorce would affect me in that way. But also, I'm a kid. Like, also, what control do I have? You are pushed for, you know, number one, you must do the best, and then balancing that with, okay, this has now rocked my world, I must be like a mini like co-parent at some point. I think there was just a lot of responsibility and expectation where it was just like, but wait, with what life skills do you want me to do any of this? And not also teaching your kids how to fail. Guys, please teach it. Like, not saying them to go for participation trophies. Please, like, push for number one, but also learn that if you come second or third, like, your life isn't over. Like, it's okay.
If you could write a letter to your younger self, right? You can choose any era before your 20s. Any era before your 20s, because you've lived.
Yeah. I'm like, we haven't even touched on half of the stuff, but yes.
To that girl,
yeah.
what would it say?
I'm going to start with the easy. Don't date nice guys. It's very easy to be nice. The one thing. Then, what else would I say to myself?
Are you not going to elaborate when you write the letter on what you mean by
nice guys? Oh, no, because being a nice guy is easy. I can get you flowers, I can open the door, but that's not your character. That's just you playing a part. So don't fall for the guy that's doing all of these things. It's the same like as an employee. You can be a star employee when you're getting the rewards, but when things are going south, do you actually have stickability? Can you stick around? What's your character in that moment, you know? So there's that. And also because I think also when you're in your 20s, navigating love and life, you don't know about things like love bombing, and here you are thinking you must be in a relationship because everyone else is in a relationship, and then you end up being in an abusive relationship because we've just accepted any who that has walked through the door. Also, if you pick the guy who is nice and has, I guess, a dream, but has nothing else, and you're out here paying for his McDonald's at the age of 9, it's a bit problematic. So when I say I've also dated quite a smarty box of men, shame, we have been there. So when it comes to that, like, don't date the nice guy. And also, like, and again, I'll go back to the other thing of when you date the nice guy, it's also very difficult to break up with him. Because now it's like, how do you hurt this man's feelings? Now you just have to wait for him to break up with you. So now you must act crappy so you can get broken up with. So this is also why I've been single for 7 years, guys. I had to take a break. Because I was like, I can't. So there's that. I think also, shame, like, I don't want to say I've hated my life. Like, if I look back, I do look back with fondness. Like, shame, like, we skated past with our life sometimes. But it's been a good life. Like, I don't want to say it was crappy all the time. I think it does get better. And I think that's also one thing, like, you are, that feeling that you have inside, you are destined for greatness. Like you've had that feeling for a while and you couldn't quite pinpoint it, but it will play itself out. Trust that gut instinct, even though you're not with God yet, because I know it's early 20s. So you are still very much an atheist and don't believe in a higher power. So your gut instinct and people's prayers will cover you. It's okay to bump head, it's okay to make mistakes. That perfectionism is also going to hold you back from so many things. So live, I want to say live a little, but like not like live the way you were living. Like just let go. Not everything has to be under your control. What else? Oh, learn to spend time on your own, goddamn, and sober, like sober. Learn to appreciate that, because yeah, it's, again, as well, it's beautiful that I can feel it now, but I'm like, it would have been interesting to see if I had that mechanism back then, or how life would have panned out. What else would I write to myself? We said we're going to be great, don't date nice boys. I think understand your mother a bit better, because you all are going to clash heads like it's no one's business. Also, it's okay to be your weird, dramatic self. There are your people out there, so don't even sweat it. Like, and if people are intimidated by you or don't know how to handle you, again, it's not your problem to make them like you. So, and I think the people pleasing as well. It will save you a lot of drama, both in your personal and professional life. I think you'll also get over a lot of heartache. Go to therapy a bit more often. I think we also would have avoided a lot more, because a lot of it was now like self-tinkering to the point that we were like, oh, this is why, okay, cool. I think therapy may have gotten us there a bit faster. But yeah, other than that, you're a beautiful soul. You love people. And that's all that the world needs, is love.
Are you proud of yourself?
Oh, 1,000%. Me, fighter, 1,000%. Like, there's times when I thought like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is Cleo laying down. And then I don't, which is weird. Like, I'm like, oh, we're not, okay. I'm like, clearly you still want to fight sharp. Like, there are really times like if I felt like my body was split in two, where I'm like, I really don't want to like get up today. And it's like, no, you kind of should. Like maybe like wash the dishes, wash yourself, like, you know. And then there's times where I'm like, you just have that realization of like, this is why was I feeling sad? Like, you are who you are. Like, and I think that was one thing, like, when life happens, we think that everything we've achieved prior to that is just stripped away, like it doesn't exist. When it's like, no, babes, you still did that. And you're still capable of so much more. And I think that's just the beauty of it, just always constantly having to remind yourself, like, who you are. And that can be the awards, how you show up for people in your life. I mean, I love when I hear, like, friends just eventually open up and they'll be like, sure, even when you had nothing, you still showed me kindness when people who had couldn't. And that just, for me, it speaks to my character. And I always said, like, I just want to leave the world a better place. And I know it sounds so, like, cliche, but I think if we realize how hard life is and how moments of kindness and random acts of kindness, even just like a compliment, makes someone's day, because you never know what people are going through, trust me. And also, learning. Oh, guys, we must please stop telling people things are going to get better and just hold on. I will punch someone. After the season I've been in, I will punch someone. Like, I just got so tired of that. I'm calling it toxic positivity, because if you don't have anything to say, and I've learned even to respond better now when people are going through it, I'm like, what you are going through is shitty. And I'm like, we can talk about it. I'm not going to like say things are going to get better, because I'm not God. I don't know when that is. But we can chat about it. I'm tired of like, oh, things are going to get better. Just hold on 6 more months. Guys, I did that loop so many times. I'm like, come at me with good words and see what happens. So yeah. And you know, also just a little funny thing. I remember my 10th birthday. This is how I can laugh at myself. I still remember like standing in the mirror and being like, oh, like you're 10 now, you know, double digits. And I was like, you're never gonna smoke, you're never gonna drink. Guys, shame. We didn't know life was gonna life the way it did.